The centrists don't feel welcome in either party right now.
So on NBC's Meet the Press, Chuck Todd had on RNC Chair Ronna McDaniel and DNC Chair Tom Perez. And while they were talking about healthcare, Chuck Todd asked a question that made me sort of raise an eyebrow.
There's a lot of people that are in the middle on this, okay? They hear a little bit from you and think, yeah, this is a little too expensive. And they hear what you have to say and they think, no, but you know what? This is a right. We need to figure this out. But they feel as if the two parties don't give them an opportunity to be sort of center-left or center-right, whether it's on this solution or that.
Okay, so there are two parts to this that are just sort of mind-numbing. So Chuck Todd makes the fair observation that some people think Obamacare is too expensive, which it is. It's getting too expensive for some people. And those same people also think, well, we can't get rid of it, but we need a solution for everybody. And Todd seems to think the solution is a centrist position, which, okay, if you think Medicare for all is a centrist position, then you're correct. There is a centrist position, but most people wouldn't consider that to be a centrist position. That's a left-wing position. And he's giving the idea here that there's no room for people in the center. Now, what Chuck Todd doesn't really understand is that nobody's in the center. The last people to go after the center are the Democrats. Hillary Clinton went after the center, and she lost against Donald Trump. There's nobody in the center. The people that you need to actually attract are on the left. People that are feeling disenfranchised with both parties. This past election, the right side of that equation got Donald Trump. People that were feeling disenfranchised from the Republican Party, but they had this Donald Trump who was an outsider, somebody who wasn't a typical politician. And that's why Donald Trump was able to beat 17 other candidates, or more than 17 other candidates, to become the Republican nominee and then ultimately win the election. And he did that on a wave of people who hadn't voted for a while. Or people who, if they had voted, they had felt like either party hadn't really truly represented them. And they were done with the party establishment. And they wanted to get somebody new in there. But this is the mainstream thinking, the conventional wisdom. This is what people like Chuck Todd, people on television, on cable news think. That there's no party in the center. Nobody's talking to the centrist voters. No. The Democratic Party is the center, if not the center-right party. The Republican Party is so far to the right that it's not even worth talking about. The Democratic Party is potentially worth saving if they can bring it back to the left. But they keep losing because they are in the center. And look, if you don't think they're in the center, then tell me what Obamacare is. Obamacare is a right-wing healthcare plan from the 90s. It's a private insurance-based healthcare plan. That is not a liberal plan. That's not a left-wing plan. A left-wing plan is single-payer. It's public-funded healthcare. That's what a left-wing plan is. Obamacare is a center-right position. The far-right position would be to have nothing at all, the way it was before. But the center-right position is Obamacare, private insurance-based healthcare. So, what we're talking about here, what he's talking about saving, and while looking for the centrist position, is he's talking about saving a center-right healthcare plan. Now, this whole discussion, without Chuck Todd even realizing it, is happening on the center-right. There is no discussion here about the left. Single payer is not brought up. Even Tom Perez, the DNC chair, the guy who should be trying to sell single payer, doesn't bring it up. And in fact, this next question gets to the exact heart of why Democrats are, in fact, not held down by their base. Because even Tom Perez admits that the base has no effect on them.
Do you accept this premise that both of your parties are captured by the bases right now? I'll let you answer that.
No, I don't. And here's, Chuck, let's talk about the access to health care.
So Chuck Todd straight up asked Tom Perez, is the Democratic Party captured by the base? And in one of the only times that Tom Perez has ever answered a question honestly, he said, no, it's not. So he fully admits the Democratic Party is not captured by their base. I'm actually impressed by Tom Perez. He's being honest. At least he's being honest. He's not pretending that the Democratic Party is a progressive party or trying to sell a progressive agenda. They're not. They're a center-right party. And Perez even admits that. And in this last clip, Chuck Todd shows how out of touch he really is with the American voter.
But answer my question.
Your question.
Like, the centrists don't feel welcome in either party right now.
The centrists don't feel welcome in either party right now. Okay, look, I'll give him this. Centrist voters, centrist Republican voters, likely don't feel at home in the Republican Party at the moment. And when I'm talking about centrist Republicans, I'm really only talking about the people you see on television. People like Hugh Hewitt, who is, I guess, a centrist Republican in the eyes of the mainstream media. But the average voter feels fine. They voted for Trump. The average Republican voter voted for Donald Trump. There's no issue there. There are no centrist Republicans. Like I said, there's only centrist Republicans on television. The actual people that are Republicans in the real world are not centrist Republicans. They're Republicans. And the same thing with the Democrats. Democratic voters vote for the Democrats largely because there's no other choice. And they're not as bad as Republicans. But as we saw in the last election, Democrats can't win elections based on that anymore. They need an actual message, an actual way to go out there and get the progressive voter that hasn't had a real party to vote for in 30 years. And look, in a slight defense of Chuck Todd, he might be conflating centrist voters with independent voters. He may think that independent voters are centrists, and they don't feel home in either party because they're in the center, when that's only half true. It's true they don't feel home in either party, but it's not because they're in the center. It's because either party doesn't represent them as a platform. So, for example, the Democratic Party, instead of pushing for Medicare for all or single payer, they pushed for Obamacare, a private insurance-based healthcare system. How about all those people that wanted a public option or Medicare for all? Polling shows at least half the country wants Medicare for all. Those people, yes, they do not feel at home in the Democratic Party, but it's not because they're in the center. It's because they're left of the Democratic Party. And even apart from that, how about debt-free college, or a $15 minimum wage, or adopting drastic climate change legislation, or reforming Wall Street, or getting big money influence out of politics, or moving for higher taxes on the rich and multinational corporations, or at the very least enforcing the existing corporate tax code and not allowing corporations to use loopholes to get out of paying taxes. This is why people are tired of both parties, because they worship big money. It's not because either party is too far left or too far right, though you could argue the Republicans might be too far right. But it's because these parties worship big money. They are influenced by that big money. They're not influenced by their voters. And people like Chuck Todd don't realize what the actual problem is because they're in their mainstream media establishment bubble. The people they talk to all think like this. So they're not actually out there on the street talking to regular people. They're not looking at polling, showing that the majority of people want Medicare for all, showing that the majority of people want a higher minimum wage, showing that the majority of people want higher taxes on the rich and on large corporations. So until mainstream media understands that, they're going to continue being out of touch with the average person. I'm going to give a big Patreon shout out to Mark Mayer. He helps support the show. If you enjoy The Rational National and you want to support us, check us out at patreon.com/TheRationalNational. There's also a link below the video and somewhere on the screen right about now.